very good evening to you and welcome to Crime Must Fall Show. Tonight we take another trajectory where we focus on the protocols of security in the institutions of higher learning. And just today, the Cabinet Secretary for Education, Professor George Magoha, has announced new regulations and guidelines on how schools are going to be reopened. On the show, we are joined by Professor John Mungania. Professor John Mungania is a Vice Chancellor of Presbyterian University of East Africa. He has a deeper experience on matters social sciences, administrative duties of higher institutions of learning. He's also flanked by Dr. Majani Gerald, who is a lawyer, a legal consultant, and also the head of criminology department at the Presbyterian University of East Africa. My name is Cornelius Omuse, and I welcome you to join us in this discussion as we look into some of these protocols, some of the incidences and occurrences at the institutions of higher learning, and how can they be mitigated in order to ensure that the students and the community around are not affected with the insecurity matters. This conversation, remember, is also live on our Facebook page, CAC TV Kenya, and our YouTube channel is CAC TV Kenya. Professor and Daktari, welcome tonight on Crime Must Fall Show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know it is your first time to be on CAC TV,
Yes.
but looking at you, the smiles on your faces, you've come to see, I don't know whether CAC is your cousin or a brother. Professor can begin by telling us what is the relationship of PUEA and CAC TV.
Oh, that's great.
Yes.
We are really related because the Presbyterian University of East Africa is sponsored by the Presbyterian Church of East Africa, and for that reason, CAC is a product of the Presbyterian Church of East Africa, and therefore, whether we are cousins or brothers or sisters, there we are. Very intimately related.
Many thanks,
Yes.
Professor. Dr. Majani, also on your part, we do welcome you on the show tonight. And we will introduce your part by letting our viewers have the background of tonight's discussion on this issue of security. You know, someone asked themselves, they are discussing now security protocols in institutions of higher learning. Why do we need, or what is this security in institutions of higher learning?
First of all, thank you very much, Omuse. My name, as have been told, Dr. Gerald Majani Liguyani, a lawyer by profession and a legal consultant, head of department criminology in Presbyterian University of East Africa. Thank you once again. Now, matter security are very, very emotive. Why? Because of a very simple reason, that we have always been told by scholars and saints and sages that man finds pleasure in pain. And because man finds pleasure in pain, pain must be tamed. And therefore, man must also be tamed. Because man can never be trusted by another man. Man always engages in criminogenic acts for survival. Because man believes in the first rule of life, that nature creates itself, defeats itself to maintain itself.
Before we lose you, Daktari, when you've talked over that maxim that you've just come up with, that man finds pleasure in pain, is it pain that man inflicts on another man, or the pain that he inflicts on himself?
Man finds himself in a state of nature, and nature is cruel. Nature is hostile. So nature, as man tries to run away from nature, he creates a system of himself to benefit himself, and in the process he hurts another man. Therefore, the need for security. So therefore, man creates security to secure himself from another man. And hence, that is why, in the process of creating all this, we have to start by asking ourselves, why security? Security is a byproduct of crime. Without crime, we might not talk about security. So first of all, let us establish what is this that is the impetus of security. It is crime. And what is crime? then we move forward and look at so many philosophical foundations. And we might not talk about all of them. We can only reflect on one, Raffaello, who says that crime is a product of man's actions to harm man. And because man harms man, then there is need for man to be tamed, for us to realize security. And in the process, we are saying institutions of higher learning are part of the sociological foundations. Sociological foundations in the sense that when you talk about higher learning institutions, it's not just about students. It's not just about lecturers. It's about the whole human community. And that's why we are saying that security is not just about students. It's about all of us. Where does it start? And based on where it starts, that is now why we start saying that first of all, we may talk about security in terms of crime, and we break down crime and say, in higher learning institutions, we expect that there must be order. Because during that process of inducting this that we call students, we believe that we have chosen the best. We believe that we have taken those students who have manners, who have a character. And because of this belief, then we go further and give them our rules and regulations, because they have already subscribed to the national values, to the national deeds, to the national pursuits. So based on that, then we are saying, then what goes wrong when these students are in universities, or what goes wrong? That is from the internal approach. But external approach, then we are saying, why should a terrorist look at that particular organ, that particular institution, and say, I must cause harm to
Many
that?
thanks, Daktari. Now we bring in Professor Mungania to take us through him as an administrator, someone who has been at the helm of an institution of higher learning for some time, both within and without the country, to bring out some of these occurrences practically that has happened in these universities that pose a security threat in terms of terrorism, in terms of other actions that, according to the good doctor who has really given us a new discovery tonight of how man, due to the occurrences of nature, is a dangerous creature on himself.
Yeah, but it's almost, actually that is almost common sense, because as my doctor says here, you discover a student comes to the university. Some are very, 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 very innocent. Others are, of course, crooks. And because of what he's talking about, the nature of crime, you know, they start now engaging in these bad habits. For example, some may want to smoke bangi, others may want to rape, others may... So you discover when they come now as a community, they may poison each other in the terms of like those who didn't even want these things, they try to be, you know, we call it radicalization. They start being radicalized. And then you start seeing good boys and good girls, they are now behaving like animals. And at the same time, as they behave like animals, you see them routing, sometimes out of useless things. I remember there was one school who routed. This is in Western Kenya. They just routed because they missed bread for 4 days. Later on they know there was no bread in town. But of course the police will not tell them there was no bread in town. But they routed and burnt a whole lab, costing that time 4 million. Meaning now these guys out of routing, they caused a lot of damage. And of course at the end of the day they were to be expelled. And when they came back, then they had to pay. At that time, I remember they were paying over 20,000 each. Now you can see, out of this criminal offense, now you see what it cost now, the life of other students, the life of the parents, everybody was in pain.
Let's go back some time back. I was still a toddler. I think I had not even gone to nursery school, but my history knowledge and my capability to relate with my environment then. There is a school called used to be called Kianguli Boys in Machakos or in Ukambani region,
Yes.
where a group of above 200 students were burnt down
Yes.
in a dormitory, and they were burnt to ashes beyond recognition. So briefly, we'll wish to bring in Daktari to really help us shed light on really what happened at Kianguli Boys, and finally, what did the state come in to bring out? What is it that happened, and how far did that issue go, if at all you happen to have followed the story?
Okay, Changuli story is not actually a story, it's a happening of an event. This happening of an event brought a lot of sorrow, suffering, and above all, abject rejection to many parents and studentship. Now, we talk about fire breakouts. And if it were that actually it was a fire breakout, then from the security perspective, we are saying that what are the protocols that institutions of higher learning, including tertiary institutions and even high schools, have put in place to capture such kind of an incident in case it were to happen. Number two, there was a conspiracy theory that you see, although we can't believe in it so much, but some of the students were driven by unknown motive. Because for a crime to occur, we always say there must be elements. And these elements include intention, motive, reason to believe, knowledge, attempt, and commission. So in the process of each and every stage, how are institutions prepared to attack or deal with these situations?
Many thanks,
Now,
Daktari. We are coming into that, but before then, I wish to bring the good professor in. When he sits in his office, or people of his capacity as vice chancellors, who are actually the chief executive officers of universities across the world, we want to look at some of these situations that when it lands on your table, you will say that this institution actually is under threat, and that our security threshold is under threat. What are some of these things that when they're brought on your table, Professor, you'll say that Presbyterian University of East Africa is under security threat?
Right. I think, Mr. Musa, this is another area where we need to discuss, because this again happens all the time. Sometimes, I'm remembering the Garissa University, that terrorist attack, where you discover many people lost their lives. In fact, they were saying 147 students died. And if you look at this, you see many other things that you can sense. If in the university, for example, you hear there are cases of rape, and this in most cases is there. You hear there are cases of rape. It's not only even rape, even robbery with violence. Some students may come cut and all these other damaged because of these terrorist affairs, possession of arms with students, and I know. Like I remember one of the universities, don't want to mention in here, that when the rooms were discovered that they had arms, a lot of these arms were taken from there. Pangas, rifles, and you wonder whether it's in the student here who is holding this. Where they get them, this is also a matter of insecurity. Possession of arms with the university is common. You may not think these are just cleaning boys and girls. They may have a lot of very serious ammunition. Not only that, even proud, stealing other students' things and also university things. All the drunkenness, immorality, all these things when they are presented. In fact, like the common drug abuse, we call the substance abuse. Like this one, most of the times you discover these things you are hearing cases here and there, including disease, like even HIV. Of course, I'm not talking about the corona because this is a new thing. But all these things, you hear them. Now, particularly the cybercrime, my friend. For example, you discover every student is holding a gadget. In fact, sometimes you wonder whether they are reading or they are not reading. Actually, everybody you see during break, every time, when you see all these things, you will discover things are not okay. There is problem.
Let's bring in Dr. Majani on this matter. Thank you so much, Professor, for having highlighted that once some of these things are brought to your attention,
Yes.
you will actually declare as a head of state, state of an emergency within the institution, probably maybe call a meeting. We are coming into that when we reach onto the communication structure in terms of security. But again, nothing happens in a vacuum. Na Waswahili wanasema ukiona vielea jua vimeundwa. Napenda kusema huo msemo.
Yes.
There must be some of these triggers that really comes in to see that there is insecurity in an institution. Some could be internal, others could be external. I don't know them. But Professor Majani, what are some of these things that really contributes or gives birth to insecurity in institutions of higher learning? Because before you identify the source of the problem, it also becomes hard to tackle those problems.
We are saying that institutions of higher learning should be established and should be critically observing evolution of security at all levels. Why? Because of a very simple reason, that before you claim to be an institution, there must have been some renaissance, or there must have been some research based on your establishment as to your threats, as to your opportunities, what we call SWOT analysis. And if it's not even SWOT, there must have been a matrix on whose basis you have given your observations and your recommendations to do a risk assessment, particularly on security matters. So, per se to say, when you talk about institutions and security, one of the things that I've looked at is, here is a person, here is a student. You have enrolled into your institution as a good student, a peace-loving, and a correct rule of law-abiding citizen. Then what happens when the student is in the institution? We have communalism of studentship. Now, under communalism of studentship, that is now where you find peer group influence. That's where you find domestication of habits. That's where you find, what we would call, asanda behavior. Such that students want to discover. And why is it so? Because parents, as us, we have left these students to their own destiny with the institutions. And by doing that, students ape. Within that communalism principle, there are these students who want to live like others because they are not the same. Therefore, this factor would actually synergize many students who are disadvantaged and needy to, so to say, be radicalized, for example. So to say, to seek for other means of getting money so that they be at par with the rest. Apart from that, the environment.
Many thanks. Now, sorry, Dr. Majani, thank you for that. We go back to the father now,
Yes.
who sits. Dr. Majani has done a good work within the university. He has identified that indeed we have ABCD that is causing the behavior of the student to behave in this particular manner, to behave in that particular manner. But Professor Mungani again sits and anasema kuna watu huku nje, they are doing ABCD that is now spilling over to the university.
Yes.
Professor, some of these external factors that you think also contributes to the deterioration of security or security threats in institutions of higher learning. Yeah.
Mr. Muse, again, as he says, it's a complex. Because, like you are talking about radicalization, like you are talking about peer grouping, all these things, when joined together, you find the students doing what they should not have done. And that's what causes the university now to sit down and they start preparing, ready for any eventualities, because they may occur. That's why you see at the university we have policies, so that we know if a student does this, this is the resultant action we take. We have not even only policies, security policies. We have discipline, code of conduct. We have things. In other words, what I'm saying, we prepare for any eventuality that may come.
On that now, Professor, these matters have been identified that are indeed in this institution we are faced by ABCD that really threatens our security. So help us to also understand, because our viewers want to know the security structure within a university. What does it encompass when you talk of that we are going to tackle these as a university, as you've prepared on yourself, the structure of the security? What does it encompass? And maybe in summary we get to understand each and every section.
And actually, this depends on the complex of the matter and of course the dynamic factors in various situations. So it will demand you to look at it and see what it encompasses. Sometimes we need something like mitigation. And mitigation, in most cases, we talk about these laying down procedures, our policies, security policies, and we try to, the rules. We try to enact these ones and start now engaging them, engage the students that these crimes may come. Even before they come, we must have mitigating factors that if this happens, this is what you do. And in fact, in most of our archives, you will discover the university is always ready and prepared for any eventuality, because many things may come. We even want to talk about the response. If this happens, what shall we do? And that one has its own like policy, a code of conduct. Let me take the example of Presbyterian University. Before any crime, before we detect anything, we tell people this is a faith-based university. And the difference between us and these other now, for example, public university, is because we look at the integration of faith and learning. So that when you teach student physics, you'll be taught the same physics as elsewhere. But for us, it does. What does that mean to your life? So we call it integration of faith and learning. So that whenever the student is taught anything, as a kind of response, he is always told, hey, be careful why you are doing this. It's not for nothing. There must be something why you are doing it, not just for that. In fact, that has made us, like in our university, we have never seen these things like routing, we have never experienced like strikes, we have never experienced all these things like fire, you know, like there were years behind us now, which the students were burning schools. We have never experienced that. But a good university like our university, we must have a response. What can happen if this happens? And it starts from the classroom. Teach them how to integrate what they are learning, even their peer groupings, what they are learning. Actually, like now, we even include things like, for example, WhatsApp groups, so that we can monitor whatever these guys are saying. By the time it happens to be reality, we have already overcome it. And so these are things. And we think about what can happen. So we think about recovery. And what can we do actually if this happens? What are the best practices can we use? And from that now discussion, you discover the place is calm. Even when there are terrorists around, we don't mind because we have already done our background work.
Thank you, Professor, for taking us through those the structure and what it encompasses when it comes to matters of security. But there's something briefly here that usually brings a lot of commotion and a lot of misunderstanding between the university management and the students' body. Excuse me. This is the part of students' elections. And also when it comes to students presenting their grievances. I don't know, from your experience, Dr. Majani, what do you think is the best practices so far on how to handle students' elections, institutions of higher learning? Because I'm told even nowadays in high school students go for elections, including primary. What do you think is the best way? Kwa sababu kuna kuanga ni maneno kura imeibwa, sijui namna gani, ama ati administration inapendelea nani, such a things.
I'll go back to what I had discussed earlier, and that is studentship and communalism. Now, I happened to be a student leader many years ago, in 90s, in a place called Punjab, Chandigarh in India. And there, as a student leader, before I became a student leader, communalism was based on ideas.
Punjab, the one that
Yes.
some of
Wakala
famous
Singh
politicians
Sekakali, yes.
here in Kenya.
Yes,
have been-
exactly, that is it. So, politics, student politics is about ideas. And how do you inculcate these ideas to studentship? It is through classroom engagement. But then, it has come to my notice in the recent past that many of the student politics or groups are based on attachments and inclinations. It can be tribal, it can be race, it can be avarice, or otherwise, it could even be initiated by other third parties. So it's not about ideas. And this is now what creates a security lapse in institutions.
Many thanks, Dr. Majani. We take a quick commercial break. As we come back, we'll be looking into the communication structure within institutions of higher learning and some of the mitigation procedures and processes that institutions of higher learning, students, fraternity, the government, and the community around can take whenever there are security threats within institutions of higher learning. And tonight we have two experienced gentlemen who are working at the helm of a private Christian university. They're helping us to understand the past cases, what is happening and what is likely to happen in the future, and the mitigation procedures. Keep it on CAC TV. Break.
The Bible should play the most important role in the life of a Christian regarding making decisions, major or minor. God gave humankind a freedom of choice between numerous possibilities, but the basic choice is between good and evil. Bibles are now available at the PCA head office bookshop, South C, Nairobi. We have Bibles available in English, Kiswahili, and Kikuyu. Make your purchase today. For more information, call 0722 205051.
Tunataka kuomba Wakenya wote tuzingatie yale serikali imetuomba. Pamoja tunawe mikono, tuweke umbali unaofaa, na pia tukae nyumbani. Na kama haiwezekani kukaa nyumbani, unataka kwenda nje, lazima uvae barakoa ili zote tuangamize COVID-19.
Are you looking to grow a business? CAC TV offers you a variety of advertising opportunities to suit your budget. Advertise with us today and reach your potential customers countrywide. For more information, email us on sales@cactv.org or call 0794 588 054. Welcome back, and many thanks for tuning in to Crime Must Fall Show on CAC TV. And tonight we discuss the security protocols in institutions of higher learning. We are revisiting the past, the current, and what is likely to happen in the future, especially with the digital migration. We've had cases of students being burnt in high schools, in the dormitories. We've had cases even of terrorists going into institutions of higher learning and causing deaths. Professor John Mungania, the Vice Chancellor of Presbyterian University of East Africa, is with us on the show, flanked by Dr. Majani Gerald, who is the head of Criminology Department and also the legal officer. There are people with high experience on these matters, having handled issues in decision-making bodies such as the disciplinary board, and they're helping us on what is the psychology of the student, the psychology of the community around, and what is it that can be done in order to combat crime and maybe make it fall. Though Dr. Majani talked of it seems not a possibility, but at the end of the show he will tell us actually with the nature of man, is it possible to make crime fall as our slogan goes, or he has another idea. Keep it on CAC TV as we look into these matters. And before we pick from where we left, we'll just have to see some of your comments. We have someone called Festus Ble, pronouncing like a Cameroonian name. He says, I do not understand unknown motive in quotes in security. Dr. Majani will say something about it. And then Rishi Arun Pari, he says fire drills, disaster management, first aid trainings help raise security and safety in learning institutions. External factors or risks falls on our NPAs. All institutions have pre-enrollment rules and regulations that they have to abide by or be disqualified for life. Thank you, Rishi. Rishi still adds, institutions should also manage security and moral policing strictly. Some campuses look like fashion houses, such deters learning and moral decay. Professor Mungania will tell us whether he has actually tackled that part that is of concern to Rishi. And then Festus again says a backset is always structuring security department to report to head of operations, finance, and all secretary. Security should be independent and empower as such. Festus, on the second part of the show, we are looking into the communication structure in institutions of higher learning, and I think the two gentlemen will really answer your concern. Security ensures compliance, safety, auditing of the same, and ensuring implementation. Other departments will try to find shortcuts to enhance operations. And then Godfrey Salikato, I love Professor Mungani and the panelists. God bless you. Thank you so much. Those are some of the comments that are coming from our viewers tonight. We had looked into some of those cases and how to go about them. But someone is talking of security, and security as a concern, and especially when it comes to communication. Universities are usually associated with the bureaucracy. They say, ukitoka kwa Dean of Students has to report to the Registrar, Student Affairs. The Registrar has to go up to the DVC, Student Affairs. From DVC, kama kimeumana iende kwa VC. Na kama Vice Chancellor imekuwa ngumu, afikie Chancellor, maybe Chancellor is in Australia for 4 months for other engagements, so things may not come. All this lies under communication. But again, it is important, Professor, to help the public, the students, and even prospective students who are yet to join universities and those ones who are in universities to understand the communication structure. So that kitu isifanyike tu jamaa anatoka nenda naambia mtu kwa kitchen huko, and maybe it's supposed to go to the other side. Professor, open the link by showing us actually the first step of communication that occurs in institutions of higher learning.
Mr. Mose, I think my colleague, because he's my senior lecturer there,
yes,
in criminology,
yeah,
can answer that before I come to answer, because there are lines of communication, and once they are not broken, then there will be no problem of insecurity.
Actually,
People
coming to
live
you,
at peace.
it's like I jumped.
Yes,
Dr.
yes.
Majani,
Yes.
initiate us into this part of communication, because anytime communication is broken down, we are told full stop ikikosa mahali, a sentence may lack meaning, and things goes the other side.
Now, when it comes to security, communication is key. Now, why is communication key? Communication is key because we are able to understand and identify and protect and then report who, number one, are the stakeholders in security. Number two, who are the actors in security. Number three, who are the players in security. Number four, now who are the spoilers in security. So communication is key. Now let us look at communication per se and ask ourselves, who should communicate and what should be communicated. Because suppose there is a fire breakout in an institution, who should communicate? In whose preserve is communication? Then we would say in security, then we breach that staccato of the registrar, the VC, and all that process. It is instantaneous. Who has the information? And that is why we say security begins with you. Security begins with you. It's not about another. It's about you. So communication is simply when you get the information, first-hand information, pass it over timely and specifically. Then with that, it will be effective. You will be arresting the situation. Then mitigation will come in. Then response will come in. Preparedness will come in. And recovery will come in. Without which, then we shall fall not.
So like in an institution of higher learning like a university, a student has observed that some men are jumping over the fence and even how they are dressed maybe umefunika also suspect.
Yes.
So where does this student begin his concern? Where does he begin to report? To whom, where and how? Because sometimes they might take information maybe to the security person at the gate, and this
He's
security
part of
person
the
is a
conspirator.
conspirator of the ones who wants to attack the institution. So who is this person that at the worst of the worst will serve to protect the university or the institution of higher learning?
Now, institutions of higher learning have a security policy. And within the security policy, there is a communication strategy. And the first level of communication strategy is, whoever you are, there must be a central user gadget, a number which anybody can call anytime to arrest the situation. And in Presbyterian University of East Africa, we are towards that journey. And therefore, it's not about a student seeing somebody jumping over the fence and looking for who to report. This number is circulated all over the institution, and it is readily available, whereby any student observing, not just a student, anybody, be it staff or otherwise, observing any suspect behavior can easily call or write a message. And that is the best mode of communication in a security strategy. You don't have to look at, let me run and look for Professor
where
Wang.
any information that goes there will actually be confidential. There is this part that becomes a hindrance. And some time back when we had one of the senior government official in the criminal investigative department, I even posed this question to them. The protection part. Someone has seen that fellow students want to do ABCD, which is not maybe good. You know, people have been brought up in different ways. Like your institution is a Christian university, though not all who comes there subscribe to the statement of the faith of the university. And then this person wakes up and says, let me report. Are these students assured of the protection, or they'll find themselves in that category of saying, hey, so-and-so is a spy? Na nindi alituambia the chief head security tumekuwa naye juzi kwa bar hapo Kikuyu, na alitueleza whoever reported ni Majani. Okay, I'm saying now Professor Majani, by then maybe is a student. I'm just using the name as an example. That ni Majani ndiye alireport hiyo kitu. Otherwise wakati tulikuwa tunaenda kuchoma hiyo dormitory, jamaa wa security tukikunywa naye Kikuyu hapa alituambia hivyo. What are these modalities that you have to protect some of these people with good faith, including the staff, who wants to come and report matters that can put the university into danger?
Yeah, actually, Bwana Musa, this is now where the answer. Actually, this is where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah.
Because there is this problem of answerability. Now, who is answerable? How and where? And just these things. In fact, when you're reporting these cases, people start now the idea of, in fact, I may want to call it blame game. And this is what you are saying, stop this blame game, start now communicating because you are the one. Because Dr. Mayani here says security is everybody's business. It's not yours or who. Not if I report this, you say this. But if you stop that blame game, I am sure security will be rampant in the area. And I'm saying this one from the university point of view can only happen when there is education, because people must be taught. In fact, like I said again, our program like this program on criminology, it is crafted in a way that people know what is their responsibility. What is a crime? In fact, they must know. And then when do I report? Not who should report, when should we report, when it happens. Actually, sometimes you need to help the students, because this now we are talking about the students, to recognize and respond to all signs of threat. Because as you are saying now, somebody says, ukisema ni mimi, mambo atakuwa. But they are trained how to detect, how to recognize, how to respond to these signs of threat to security. And of course, they are told in all circumstances, you must say, this is happening. Because if you don't do, if you think shauri yenu, itakuwa shauri yako. Because shauri yenu is shauri yako wewe mwenyewe. And that's why we are saying information must be shared. There must be surveillance systems. For example, installations. For example, now Dr. Maya knows at the university, we want to have all these surveillance systems, like CCTV cameras, we want to have them there, so that we can detect the crime as it starts building. We have now very strong and trained security farm, because what we want to say is, we want to make sure that information is shared and everybody know. And in fact, if you went to our university, like the campus now, you see if the fire breaks out, this is where to run. This is the place where you gather, assembly place. So that whenever it happens, before it builds, we know. And in fact, as he talked about the policy, we want to make sure that that policy is implemented to the letter. It must be very comprehensive. It must be very effective, very efficient, so that you are able to arrest these various things that happen. And actually, for Mr. Omuse, we want really to establish or encourage public policy and build the trust, promote that trust. Because if that trust is built within the community, for example, like over there at the Presbyterian University, we have a meeting of the community, so that we can tell them, even when our students go out to sleep there in the hostels, they know they are responsible, and they tell us what is happening. And in fact, we want to avoid procrastination by all means. We want to avoid vagueness. That's why we want to use those cameras. When it happens, somebody can see this guy is starting to mess. So you call the necessary person. You call the necessary thing that you want to do. And you make sure that service continues. You know, to some institutions, once you have a community, once you have started a service, it is very expensive, then you break that line of communication, as my brother said here. Actually, we also want the students and everybody to comply with the legal provisions. And that's why we're having a department. That's why we are having programs on law, because we have law school. That's why you're having programs on criminology, so that everybody is trained and they comply with these statutory requirements. Actually, we want also to see them to recognize things like threats, risks, protect systems, assets, and all these things, so that when you look at the institution, even the management itself is aware this is what we are about to do, so that we can make sure that people, they trust and they believe that there is security in the area. And actually, let me say, once people understand you have security, even students will not be a problem. There will be many wanting to transfer.
Let's look into something here, Professor, and Daktari Majani about some of the illusion that was some time back, especially in universities, that there was a collusion of university managements where they know that if there is a mayhem in a university, students will be sent home, and then when they come back, they'll be charged. So there is an illusion. I don't know how true it is. As a lawyer and also a person with psychology in criminal matters, you may help us understand it. Kulikuwa na ile dhana ya kwamba university managements were instigating ile kukosana na students, were riot, then they're sent home, then when they come back, they are penalized heavily. I don't know whether you've ever come across such a statements.
You know, as I said earlier, that man finds pleasure in pain. It is in the same analogy that I'm saying the world, including institutions, are chaotic. And therefore, any person who has been elevated in a position of management must duly subscribe to integrity and respect and the rule of law. So that perception that the management alludes to a chaotic state of affairs to benefit, it's neither here nor there. It depends on who is saying, because as I said, man finds pleasure in pain. So thinking in that direction, I would say in my own conviction that maybe one or two people, as you claim in management, would have had that insinuation, but it can't go far because crime is open and insecurity is a loss to all, including that who is actually propagating it. So when you talk of institutions liaising with the studentship to pursue a cause of anarchy, then in itself, that institution has already failed from the word go.
Many things. Now, as time is actually not on our side, let's look briefly on the overview of security systems in higher learning institutions, because we have really to have an overview and probably do a brief recommendation on what's supposed to be done as we come to the end of our discussion tonight.
Yeah, I think it's good to look at the overview. Actually, as you are talking, all institutions of higher learning, like the Presbyterian University, there must be a security policy. Because there's the beginning point, a security policy. Because with the security, with that policy, you will discover that management will be given a direction. They will be given support for the information. According with, for example, with business, with administration, all these requirements, they will be given compliance strategies. How do you apply this law? How do you apply this policy? In fact, the system developed will even create maintenance. How do you do that? And above all, we revise these things more and more often.
They're reviewed.
In fact, when the Commission for University come, the first thing to see is where are your policies. One of them are in basic. Like now, Dr. Maya, you know, now we are revising our security policy. So that we make sure that it is compliant, people can apply it, it can help us, even on physical and environmental concerns of the people. This one will tell us what to do. It will tell us even the kind of people who is going to be instrumental to this or to manage it. And it will help us even to manage the assets themselves. So to me, what I think would happen in a good system, particularly for higher education, it's to have that very concise policy, security policy, and all the time reviewed. Most of the times reviewed because things change, situations change. Like now, let's take in our university now, we have so many government-sponsored students. Now, and bigger numbers. So unless we look at our security policy and they start saying, how do we address, or does this policy address the rising numbers of students, then you'll be left behind.
Many thanks. Now, time is not on our side, Professor. Let's get a parting shot from Daktari and then also parting shot from Professor on what exactly whom when, where, and how
Yes.
can we all converge to a point of agreement on how to tame, to reduce, or I don't know, to totally fall? You will tell us whether it is possible. I'm eagerly waiting because you came up with that theory.
Yes.
Let's begin from you, Daktari, then Professor, the big man in the house, will actually bring the show to an end.
Because of the very fact that we subscribe to faith, and faith propels humankind, it is without ridicule that we should say and understand that security in itself cannot and must not be taken lightly. Why? Because of a very simple reason. It is a collective responsibility. Being a collective responsibility, only then crime must fall. Because of the simple reason, collectively, the hearts of men must discern. And when the hearts of men discern, then what are we saying? We are all together in the same direction to fight a common enemy, and that is security.
Many thanks, Daktari. Professor Mungani, on your part, your
Thank
parting
you.
shot.
He almost concluded, but I'm saying this sincerely. When you are talking about security, what you are talking is we are talking about a peaceful environment, free from threats. That's what you are saying. We want an environment that is free, that is peaceful, that you can live in, even with these human weaknesses. That's what we want to create. And that tells us, basically, that security now starts with you. You must make your heart now peaceful. You must be at peace. I want to be, talking from the Honorable point of view. You want to be at peace with yourself. Because unless there is peace with you, there will be no peace with the community. I like what they were saying about the corona pandemic, this COVID-19 pandemic. When you are saying, even if, for example, I'm very careful about it, even when I don't wear the mask, even when I'm wearing the mask, even when I'm keeping distance, and you are not keeping, then of course we'll never fight corona. And that's what you are saying, to fight this crime and to bring peace, it must start with you.
Many thanks.
It is you.
Gentlemen, Professor and Dr. Majani, they have spared their time to be here tonight to share with the public, the local community and the international community on the security protocols in the institutions of higher learning. But something has come out evidently, that whatever they have discussed does not only affect institutions of higher learning, but even institutions at the lower level, the ECD, the primary, and all those levels that are within our structures. We appreciate your overwhelming responses on our social media platforms, because as we usually say, your feedback and comments keeps us going. From me, Cornelius Omuse, till next time, on behalf of our guest, that is Professor John Mungania, the Vice Chancellor, Presbyterian University of East Africa, and the good doctor from the same institution, Dr. Majani Gerald, I appreciate your time. Have a very good night, take care, and may God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
God bless you too. Yeah.